So as you all see here, Cresselia and Iron Thorns banned from the tier via council vote. Now this may surprise a lot of you for many reasons. One, there hasn't really been a lot of talk leading up to this about any sort of bans or council votes whatsoever, and the talks we did have were all surrounding Flygon. So today I'm gonna give you some knowledge. Why did these bans happen, and what should you expect going forward? Of course, before we're too far into it, subscribe, please. I'm less than 100 subs from 9K. I think hitting that would be really, really cool. We get me to 9K, then we get me to 10K, and then the world. So, where are we at in the metagame right now, and why was action taken? Well, for starters, I think we have to look towards tournaments, and also some general talking within the community about the state of NU to see why action was taken in the first place, and why this specific action was taken. So, if you are keeping up with tournaments, you're gonna notice lately a lot of people in talking about how the tier has too many matchup fishing elements in it. And what do we mean by matchup fishing? Well, we mean typically offense and very dynamic setup sweepers that can just mess your entire team up, mess your entire game plan up, because of their versatility and techs you can do with their movesets that cause counterplay to them to kind of change a bit from one game to the next. And that's the trend with at least 3 of these mons on the slate. Overqwil, we'll talk about what's going on with Big Quillium here as well, but he does play into the offense issue in the tier. But with Cress, what do you got? Well, with Cress, you got a couple things. And admittedly, Cress is a little bit less versatile, I would say, or maybe less overall potent, because it takes longer to get going. But with Cress, you had, of course, your defensive Terra types, but then you had people rolling up with these more offensive Cress, especially with Terra Fairy. And the whole point was, with Cress, you leverage the fact that this mon can come in really, really easily because of how bulky it is, throw off Moonblasts early and chip away at Pokemon like Incineroar and Overqwil, and make it a lot easier to find your chance to sweep later. You had, and look, Cress has 75 special attack for its base stat. It's not high. But the whole point was you got chip early, you got it more effectively, and when you wanted to actually just go in, your +1 Moonblasts with Terra Fairy boost are actually quite strong. I remember a calc, I believe it was +1 Moonblast if you're Terra Fairy to the offensive Incineroars. I think you do over half? There's some disgusting calc here towards Incineroar, and I do feel like this warrants talk, because it's just not legal what this was doing. Yeah, here you go. Offensive Cress versus offensive Incineroar. Now, you'll have some people who are like, oh, but offensive Incineroar isn't very good. It's not a good set. Well, look at that. You're still 3-hit KO'd, and you're not beating me 1v1. I'm sorry to say. You switch in as I Calm Mind, I outdamage you. It's just the reality of it. Obviously, EVs here are a little tricky here, but if we take out the bulk, alright, say you boosted. Congrats. You do not kill me. Oh, it still has bold. It doesn't matter. You still do not kill me. I beat your Incineroar. And the frequent thing was Cress pairs up with another mon that once Incineroar dealt with, and that's how you chain your setup sweepers together effectively. So that was probably the biggest wrinkle for Cresselia in its game plan that made it just much more obnoxious than people would like. Additionally, we can't really ignore the fact that Cress is one of the biggest enablers of terrain. And terrain, despite what you may see on this channel, because y'all all know I cannot pilot these grassy terrain teams worth a damn. I get farmed routinely with them. It's just not my HO. Other people that are good at these teams, yeah, no, they farm with them. And some of it's just because we have a million setup sweepers that are all amazing on them. Like, one of them's even on here, Oricorio-Pom-Pom. This one also does that. And when you have Cress plus Pom-Pom plus potentially Iron Thorns too, because they all can go on the same damn build, yeah, having Cress be one of the main enablers, yeah, is not fun, because this one gets a free defense boost on switch-in, and then it gets to Calm Mind, and you really unlock stored power very, very nicely that way. You get obviously a lot stronger. A couple other things, of course, too. It makes something like Incineroar less effective at beating you, because now, think about even at Calcrum earlier. These Cress are generally going to be bulky setup, of course, instead of the offensive stuff. But with the defense boost and a whole bunch of defense investment, it's a lot harder for Incineroar to try and 1v1 you. And of course, too, you can see Cress on like electric terrain as well. You get the defense boost that way, and then you're not, you know, giving Incineroar passive recovery if you're worried about that. So those are probably the main wrinkles to why Cress was always looked at as like just a negative presence, because people would argue the trade-off of what it does for the tier defensively, which is being a good fighting check, and of course punishing Flygon for locking into Earthquake, is just not worth it. Because when you're talking about building for Cress, a lot of it's very hard to feel safe into Cress if you do not have like one of 2 Pokemon on every team. And those 2 Pokemon, I guess 3, it can be hard to feel good into Cress without like always having that SD Incineroar in the back, or like an Overqwil with, you know, Haze Pain Split, or even Swords Dance if you want to run bulky SD Overqwil. Or maybe you've got like a Haze Alolan Muck. There is a good counterpoint, and I do generally agree with this despite my Cress ban vote. This is probably shocking most of you, if anything. I think you could very easily argue that Cress counterplay is perhaps a little easier to fit overall on your teams than something like Oricorio-Pom-Pom, which will just bullshit you over with Quiver Dance. But the reason I voted ban is because I feel Cresselia, it's just too bulky. This Mon, yeah, it takes more turns to get going. At the same time, though, it can afford all these extra turns. It's very hard to beat this Mon down, and it's why I've always felt that you need to have these dark types. They can just come in and shut it down as quickly as possible. Like, yeah, you've got other Mons like Encore, for example. You can have like Encore on a Chinchino if you're going to pilot your own HO. Or even just say you've got just a generic team with a Chinchino. Yeah, like Encore is good on that. We've seen some Uxie get used on teams as well. Encore on that Mon's good. Like I talked about too, Haze on Pokemon like Milotic, Vaporeon, Roar Sylveon. You've got all these as options. But they are all very temporary outside of Haze. And even then, I have not been convinced by Haze as like some end-all be-all solution to Cress. Particularly because the way Cress teams work typically overwhelms these Pokemon. Like, you gotta deal with Cress as well as Pom-Pom most of the time. They will put both of these on the same team and basically dare the opponent, alright, beat them both. Hey, that's just the reality of it. You are having to stare both of these dumb Mons down and say, alright, beat both these Mons. So, kind of cringe. Now, Pokemon you will not be shocked to see me vote ban on Iron Thorns. I find this one the funniest too. For the longest time, I have been the sole person hyping up Iron Thorns, saying, yeah, no, this Mon is insane. I don't know why more people are not using it. I think it is very, very underrated. It's so strong. And routinely used. I just kept farming people in video. Every time it'd be a Thorns showcase. I'm trying to showcase something else. Nope, Iron Thorns takes over. Oh, Pom-Pom video. Nope, Iron Thorns. Oh, let's use Hitmon. Nope, no, God, no. Iron Thorns. Oh, the video where play till I lose a second time. Yep, Iron Thorns sweeping everything with my trusty lead Smeargle to set my rocks and my sticky web. The Pokemon is just not fair. So there's a couple reasons for this. The biggest of them being Terra types. I think Iron Thorns genuinely has like 5 different viable Terra types, all of them changing counterplay drastically to it. And all of them too enabling different sets. It's very, very unfun. So let's rattle them off. You got Fairy, you got Grass, you got Flying, you got Bug, you probably got Ghost as well, because why not? Just become immune to CC entirely as the Mienshao hopelessly punches into the air. Still resisting Flygon first impression too, just why not? And there's probably other Terra types too. Ground I've seen. I saw Ground from ZS, there's 6. It's not... This is not me just rattling off possible ones. No, like these are all like genuinely good too. It's not, we have seen that OU Terra type index have like some Pokemon with like 11 viable Terra types, and let's be real for a second, some of them are just plausibly usable. Even on the NU ones, some of the Terra types you'll see, it's like, yeah, you can use this, but are you really going to? Probably not. No, Thorns could use any of these Terra types that I listed off, and probably some others too, if you really want to stretch the boundaries of viable. But if we're just keeping it to ones we actually see, oh no, it actually has a ton. And what it does is it makes Thorns really, really annoying to both stop from setting up and then revenge kill once it is set up. Because if I throw my Thorns out, on a mon that you have to switch. Say, like, you know, you got something that just can't threaten Thorns at all. Maybe it's a, I don't know, man, a Rotom Heat that doesn't have Willow. Maybe like Pain Split, Nasty Plot, Rotom Heat. You're volting out, and I get a free DD, and you try to go Flygon. What Terra type am I? Go on, guess. My Fairy? My Fairy? Can you actually Earthquake here? Or am I Grass, and if you Earthquake, it does nothing? Or am I Flying, and your Earthquake literally allows me another DD? It's for super free. Okay. Again, alright, you have a Swampert as a defensive check. Am I Grass, and I have Terra Blast, and I rock your world? Or am I, you know, am I just some other variant that still can set up more in front of you? Because you're Swampert. Let's be real for a moment. I can set up pretty easily. But oh, don't worry, dude. What if I'm Iron Thorns on grassy terrain? I don't even need to be Terra Grass anymore. I have a natural Earthquake resistance built in now, and I can just run Terra, like, Fairy for, again, great value. First Impression resist, Sucker Punch resist, CC resist. And I'm big chill. I am big Thornyless, boosting up 27 times in front of you, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. Because I don't really have weaknesses you can target very easily with your traditional counterplay. Oh, don't worry. Now I'm an Iron Thorns on electric terrain. I don't even have to run booster energy. I just get the boost from terrain, and now I can run another item. I could run a Resist Berry. I could have leftovers if I want, or, you know, passive recovery, because why not? I could have the loaded dice stuff. Yeah, loaded dice Terra Bug, because Terra Bug's genuinely really good too defensively. Fight resist and ground resist. Those are like two of the big key ones when you're talking about Thorns in this metagame. The mon is just not possible to predict against reasonably from a game-to-game basis at all. And I'm still stunned to this day it took this long for people to pick up on what I had noticed months ago. But I'm happy. Because as y'all saw, every time we had to face an Iron Thorns on this channel, you know what? Constantly the counterplay was, pray they are running Supercell Slam, and that I can get my ground type in as they slam, and then they just take 50% recoil and become revenge killable. And people in tours were adapting to that. You know how? They ran Thunder Punch. They said, you know what? With my Iron Thorns, I probably could DD up twice, have my booster energy attack boost too, and I don't even need no damn Supercell Slam. I got T-Punch. It's good enough. It was one of the most unreasonable Pokemon to predict on a game-by-game basis, and I'm so tired of pretending like it was actually balanced, man. I'm sick of this shit. So thank God it got banned. Hey guys, I voted not to ban Oricorio-Pom-Pom. I hope you all can understand why. This Pokemon is very adorable. It's actually one of my favorite Pokemon, aesthetically, and so I had to keep it around because I just believe it adds something good to the team. But all right, yeah, no. Realistically, for me with Pom-Pom, my issue with the complaints on Pom-Pom is nothing has fundamentally changed for months. Why are we now deciding this month's broken? Why? Like, I know Eternally, for example, has been saying this mon was broken when no one was using it, and he would just run into it on ladder and get pissed off. So, full respect to Eternally for voting to ban it. I can't even be mad. I can't. With that vote, I can't push back on it a damn bit. It's just the most reasonable. I believe Eternally voting to ban that mon is the most reasonable take out of any on here. This man did not ever shake with his conviction never wavered. There you go. For me, it really is just a matter of what I said earlier. I think Pom-Pom, people do underestimate how many boosts it truthfully needs to get going. Because the reality is, in this metagame, you can't greed like in previous metas before the DLC with these offensive 2-attacks Pom-Poms as easily. You really want Taunt Mono Air Slash, and that is simply put a lot easier to deal with. The Pom-Poms are forced to run bulky EV spreads because otherwise this mon is... I'm not going to say it's easy to revenge kill, because at the end of the day, Electric Flying is baby Zapdos. It's really good defensively, but you do take a lot more from stray attacks and coverage than you'd like. Things like Flygon Scale Shot does a lot more than you would anticipate it doing or really want it to be doing. You don't really want to deal with switching into Mienshao either, particularly now as they run Life Orb a lot more often. Like, you're getting beat up by the CC into Stone Edge or whatever ice move it has because they run triple axle fairly frequently right now. It's not the easiest, and you even have to deal with things like, say, Incineroar deciding, hey man, you're not taunting me on the first turn, I'm gonna boost up, and I've simply decided you will not flinch me here, I will kill you with my Flare Blitz, I will see you in the next life. Even things like Decidueye, like, you want to try and set up on me? You're not OHKOing me with Air Slash, my guy. Bramble, you're not KOing me with Air Slash. I will Poltergeist you for 500 million and put you in Revenge Kill range. It's like every Scarfer in the tier, really, that you... I don't want to say every, but a lot of Scarfers do just naturally outspeed it, because Pom-Pom, you either go super, super obese on it, and you really are just outsped, even at +2 by some Scarfers, or you run really, really fast, but you take way more damage than you'd like. So, personally, especially given the ban vote margin, I think Pom-Pom should be suspect tested in a week, especially if this week of SCL shows that it is just continuing to be problematic and maybe enabling HO way too hard. It's just the reality of it. I think with how close the council vote was and how sentiment around it, it's hard to say from like general player base, because I don't feel like the general player base really cares about Pom-Pom that much. But you want to talk, I'm not even going to say qualified player base, I'm going to say the tournament player base. Because I think the whole qualified, unqualified shit is really stupid and just elitist nonsense that we're better off without. But I think the people that are playing tournaments typically are going to face teams on the whole that are more indicative of what the metagame is. Because y'all see me, even when I'm laddering in like 14, 1500s, I'll still find games that are like 200 points below my elo. And I'm just like, alright, well, looks like I'm facing someone's in-game team. It's just hard to get a read on the meta when you're facing that. And I think that's why a lot of people don't think Pom-Pom is worth even considering in this regard. I mean, you got people thinking Cress is a C-rank mon, for crying out loud. Shout out Santa Mystics, love you, bro, but Jesus Christ, get your head out of your ass. What the fuck is that take? I'm one of the most professional Cresselia haters, and even I'm not gonna say that. But yeah, for me, I think a lot of it is a principle vote where on principle, I cannot vote to ban this mon, not right now. But I'm very open to a suspect test, and I wouldn't be shocked at all by a suspect test resulting in a ban. And then, hey, I voted to ban Quillium, so why? Well, a couple of reasons. One, people are starting to feel like Rain is probably too good, and I think I generally agree that Rain is the strongest offense variant right now. If not, it's one of the strongest. It's always hard to pinpoint what the strongest is. Terrain has shown that it's really good. Rain's shown it's really good. Generic setup is always pretty good. It's just a little harder to work right now because of how many teams spam boots. But with Big Quillium, he's what just got added to the tier, and people are really, really coming down hard on saying Rain is broken right now. So there's two ways you can look at this, right? Overqwil's broken because no one was complaining about Rain prior, or not a lot of people were complaining about Rain prior. Overqwil's now in the tier, now they are. You ban Overqwil. As good as it is for other purposes, that is how proper tiering would work. On the other hand, you could be like this. You could be, of the perspective Rain was actually already arguably too problematic. Now, keyword there's arguably. If Overqwil drops in and you are no longer arguing it, you just believe it, then okay. But if you think Rain was already too good before Overqwil, and then it comes into the tier and you're like, yeah, now it's just dumb broken, like, you know, not even a convo to be had there. You could argue maybe Basque Legion is broken. I've seen people argue that in previous Rain metas, so I don't think that's an unreasonable take. You could argue Damprock as well, however, I am aware they are trying to change policy around item and ability bans. And so, I don't think Damprock ban is something we will be entertaining anytime soon. Partly this is just me saying, alright, well, if people want to ban Rain, then sure, let's ban Overqwil. It is literally like a for the people vote. I don't really mind either way if Overqwil stays. I will gladly load up Rain on the ladder and farm people with it until it's gone. I'm not above that. So yeah. And as you can see, after my wonderful discussion here, we got Pom-Pom's going to be the central focus going forward because of how close the vote was. I do not anticipate another council vote unless it's like very, very clear after another week that Pom-Pom should be dealt with in a way. So we'll see there. We've also got Rain is going to be monitored because that's been getting a lot of talk. Flygon will continue getting some looks at because contrary to what this wonderful post here said, and in my wonderful reply, get ratio noob. Flygon still gets a lot of talk. And in Mienshao, we've actually seen a lot of talk about that mon as well in this new metagame, which I find really funny because Talonflame, the only mon gone, and now all of a sudden Mienshao is just God. Okay, man. I get the perspective, but come on, dude. Be real. This is not the fight you want. Xiao is great, though, again. I am willing to believe that Mienshao is actually a Pokemon, again, worth using instead of a mon worth dropping to, like, A- on the VR. So now, winners and losers of the shifts. And these lists are very basic. I'm kind of just trying to give, like, a general idea for y'all of what you can consider more seriously now in your builds. Flygon's one of the winners. As we talked about, Cress was one of the good punishers of Flygon locking into EQ, and if you were one of those Terra Fairy Cress sets, you literally used this mon as complete setup fodder. It was just literally Jover for Flygon off rip. So this mon gets a lot better now. Maybe not a lot better, but marginally better. You've also got things like Mienshao and Paldean Tauros. Generically, fighting types get better when the bulky psychic type is banned. For these ones in specific, though, Xiao obviously lost the exchange, and Tauros really did not like having to burn its Terra every time it ran into a Cress just to try and get through it. So that makes sense. Glowbro, it's now a lot more clear of a defensive psychic type. I think like its niche there is super solidified now, and for setup variants as well, you lost Cress's competition. This is also where you see Screamtail and Uxie come into play, because I'm really not going to see defensive value out of these too much beyond what they offer on their setup sets. But with Cress gone, they're bulky-ish psychic types that can set up. Uxie literally matching the defensive profile completely, just without a recovery move, having to rely instead on like Draining Kiss. And yet I know it gets Pain Split, but I'm just, no. Not for setup sets, no. Run Draining Kiss, man. Sylveon kind of similar in that regard, where I think it gets a little bit more value now as a fighting check. But also, I mean, I guess you get their Calm Mind in there. Alolan Muck may be a little bit weird to see here. There's a couple of reasons for this. One, I think, feasibly, the meta could potentially trend a little bit more towards builds that Alolan Muck favors, but also, let's be straight for a moment. Cress was not a matchup Alolan Muck loved. Partly because Terra Steel was very common, so you couldn't really clear Smog that, and then being forced into Haze on like every set just to beat Cress was really bad. Now, obviously it's twofold, right? Forcing Cress to Terra is still good. If you make Cress have to turn into a Poison or turn into a Steel, that opens up Pokemon on your team that can now actually beat Cress potentially. So maybe you make it a Steel type, and now you're I don't know, like your Paldean Tauros now just beats it. That's still good. It's more just Muck itself now has a lot more function, and it's still going to be able to do a lot of the same stuff versus these other psychic types, while not losing necessarily as hard 1v1 to them. Something worth keeping in mind too, Uxie and Screamtail, for example, they don't really Terra Steel. Uxie's usually Terra Fairy, because Draining Kiss is just such a weak move otherwise. Screamtail, usually Terra Normal, because otherwise this mon does not do damage, and you really want to make Boom Burst as strong as possible. Oh, and then by the way, Pom-Pom probably just gets better from the shift, because now Mono Air Slash is even better without Iron Thorns running around. It's really, as you can tell, most of the winners here centralize around the Cress ban, because I'm gonna be real, Iron Thorns ban doesn't really change a lot for too many Pokemon. Ostensibly, there's very little that gets better because of it. There's not really competition that was getting oppressed by Iron Thorns that now just becomes great. It's not really a mon that was doing it like that. So, Pom-Pom is like the winner in that regard, and that's about it. I guess Pom-Pom doesn't have to worry about Cress either deciding to Lunar Dance and KO it, so that's fun. And we got some losers. So Incineroar and Overqwil, and I don't think they're going to get a lot worse. Let's be real here. Incineroar and Overqwil are just fantastic Pokemon in general, and keep in mind, Overqwil has Rain. That mon is not going anywhere. I would argue this for sure makes Incineroar worse than Overqwil, but that's not really saying a lot, considering I think most people already thought that was the case. But yeah, I mean, they lose a part of their niche of checking Cresselia, so that's real. Decid was one I was struggling with saying it's a winner or a loser of. On one hand, I think Incineroar and Overqwil getting worse is obviously good for Decid, but on the other hand, it was a good Crest check. So I kind of went back and forth between where to put it. I put it in a losers category ultimately because, like I just said, I don't see these mons getting much worse. It's just, obviously, it's a little bit of a knock against them now. And so, because I imagine they still stay very, very, very near the top of the meta, I think you have to say that Decid is a loser, all said and done. Pincurchin also suffers because electric terrain teams, Iron Thorns existing was pretty much the only reason these were any viable, and now there's just no damn point. Just throw the teams away, man. And then I also put our spider friends here, because I think Sticky Web is notably worse without Iron Thorns. I believe it was one of the best enablers of the archetype, and without Thorns, it's kind of looking bleak. Webs has been on a downturn for a good amount of time now, and I do think it's still going to be a very, usable build. Thorns was just one of the mons that I think really kept it going, because it didn't necessarily need the webs, but it definitely was one of the better ways of making use of it, because you didn't even have to DD necessarily. When you had webs up, you just took your booster energy, and you said, yeah, switch into me, bro. Switch around me. So, ultimately, one of the best enablers of the team goes, well, yeah, I gotta say it goes down. And you may be wondering, why am I not including, Thwacky on here? Or maybe even Indeedee, female or male for the other terrains. I don't really think Psychic terrain or Grassy terrain needed Thorns. Sure, it's a marginal nerf to them, but I don't believe that it was as integral to those terrains, like Electric, or as, beneficial to those terrains as it was to the web styles. I think Grassy terrain, you can very easily just keep building without Thorns. It's not a big deal, personally, and in Psychic terrain, it's just kind of not used anyway to begin with, so I kind of am intentionally not including it, because I think it kind of sucks. Hope that's good with y'all. But I hope y'all enjoyed. So let me know your thoughts down below on the bans. Be more cordial than Zemansky here. Spiny Z, this was not a nice post, and I will be mailing you a very angrily written letter to talk to you about how I felt. But I hope y'all enjoyed. I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.